I'm very happy to be here. It's an honor for me to attend this year's World Government Summit on behalf, of course, of my own country, Paraguay, but also as the president of Mercosur, which is the largest economic bloc in Latin America, a bloc that is already 36 years old and includes Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay. Of course, Latin America, and someone who has studied Latin America for many years as an economist in the research department of my own central bank, then moving to work at a multilateral institution like the International Monetary Fund, understanding what have defined nations that has advanced and what has held other nations back. And it's very clear there are no many secrets about what has worked and what has not worked. Latin America has been for 5 centuries the land of opportunities, the eternal opportunities. 500 years ago, when the Spaniards arrived to the continent, they found full of natural resources, full of opportunities. For 3 centuries, they were present there. And 200 years ago, country by country or region by region started to gain its independence. Paraguay was among the front runners. Paraguay was the first country in South America to gain independence in 1811. And all of the countries follow over the last couple of years. But despite being independent nations, despite being countries full of opportunities, not all countries have performed the same way. We have seen a great difference in the rate of growth, and some good performance, some others who have not performed very, very well. And of course, this has also depended on the stages of growth in the world development. We saw after World War II with the architecture that was drawn with the UN, the multilateral institution, the Bretton Woods institution, the World Bank, and the IMF, that there was a lot of advancement. If we see what has happened over the last 80 years, we see that there has been a lot of progress. In fact, my own country, Paraguay, over the last 60 years was the country that outperformed the rest of the countries. When we see the rate of growth of my country, Paraguay, it was 1,500% over a course of 6 decades. But then we have other nations that have not performed very well, despite have more natural resources, despite being more wealth. The case of Venezuela. Venezuela is the country that has performed the worst over the last 6 decades. And the question is, why is this? And we understand very clearly that is institutionality, the capacity of the countries to build institutions, to transcend from one administration to the other. Of course, democracy is not the only source of political system, is not the only political system, but in the Western Hemisphere, we have defined that democracy is the one that delivered the best results. But this has also suffered in recent years. When we look at the experience of the last 3 decades, now we move to the last 3 decades, and we see that countries that were able to provide more liberty, more freedom, has performed much better than the countries that have limited liberty and freedom. And again, we see the example of Paraguay. Paraguay over the last 35 years is an example of a country that have performed much better than many other countries with larger market, with more natural resources. But Paraguay, and this is, I think, one of the greatest examples, we can compare 35 years of democracy compared to 35 years of lack of democracy, of a dictatorship. Paraguay experienced the longest military regime in South America. So we can very easily compare which one has delivered better results than the other. So I think that, and this is something that academia, literature have done a lot of work. But even all the evidence that we have now, we are not relying on that evidence. We are not relying on this science-based policy to promote growth, development, and of course the well-being of the countries in the region. This, of course, finds Latin American countries now, again, in a situation in where all the assurance, all the things that we rely over the last couple of decades now are changing. And even though what the U.S. is doing in the Western Hemisphere is not new. When we read the national security strategy and they rely on the Monroe Doctrine, who has been there for 200 years, this is not new. But what is new is probably the pace of what changes are happening and how the world is moving now in many different directions. Again, Latin America is in a position where it can take advantage of the changes that we are seeing. So forget about what has happened in Latin America over the last 5 centuries. Forget about what has happened over the last 80, 60 years, or what has happened over the last 3 decades. Let's see where we are now. We have countries who have understood that integrating with each other are better off, and integrating with other regions are better off. The problem is which countries are going to be in the best position to do so. Our own sub-region, the region of the southern corn including Brazil, Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay, and very soon Bolivia, and hopefully Panama, who has also begun the process of incorporating to Mercosur. We have absolutely no doubt that Mercosur will be the best platform to connect to other regions of the world. In January of this year, just a couple of days ago, we signed in Asunción the free trade agreement between Mercosur and the European Union. It took 25 years of negotiations. The question is, what happened? What happened over the last couple of months that made the Europeans to decide that it was about time to sign an agreement? It was the tectonic shift that President Trump brought to the world stage to trade, and the assurance of the past are no longer there. So we need to build new alliance. We need to build new relations with other regions, and this benefited Latin America, this benefited South America, and of course benefited Mercosur. Now, we have this agreement, but this is not enough, because of course we're building now the largest free trade zone region in the world, 800 million people, $25 trillion economy, but there's still a world of opportunity beyond this trade agreement. For that, we are working very, very hard to conclude in this semester, within the first half of this year, a free trade agreement between Mercosur and the United Arab Emirates, an agreement that Paraguay is taking the lead. It was granted this by the other country member of Mercosur. And we have no doubt that this will create a very dynamic market. Particularly in the case of Paraguay, we don't benefit of the size of the market that Argentina or Brazil have, but we have the advantage, which is the vision. The vision that, like a country like the UAE, and what we have seen has happened in Dubai over the last 40 years, and you, Minister, mentioned this very right. There is no oil here. The wealth doesn't come from the natural resources. The wealth comes from the vision. And this is what Paraguay wants to offer. This is what Paraguay wants to show to the rest of the region and to the rest of the world. It's a country with a vision. And this is not new to us. Paraguay already built a vision 170 years ago. It was the most developed nation. It was the most advanced country in Latin America. And because of a conflict with our neighbor countries, our development path was held back. But now we're ready to unleash that full potential. For that, we are working in integrating Paraguay to the rest of the countries in the region. We are in the middle of the largest waterway in Latin America, 3,000 kilometers. We hold the third largest fleet of barges in the world after China and the Mississippi. We are a massive amount of food that is produced in Paraguay. We can feed 100 million people. We are only 6.5. But it's not only Paraguay, but all the countries that are surrounding Paraguay that are not only net exporter of food, the only region that is able to produce a protein to feed its population, but also feed other regions of the world. So the waterway that now connects the most productive part of Brazil, the northern part of Brazil, which by the way is more landlocked than Paraguay, connect through the waterway that goes through the middle of Paraguay, connect with also Bolivia. The only way for Bolivia to get access to the ocean is through the waterway, the Paraguay River, and of course going down also to Argentina and Uruguay. So we think that this waterway will play a major role in logistics in the coming years. The other way in which Paraguay will play a central role in integrating Latin America is the Bioceanic Highway. This is the only way that you can connect the Pacific to Atlantic. This is a highway that we are building, almost 1,000 kilometers, that go through the middle of the Paraguayan Chaco. This connect again Brazil, the northern part of Brazil, and goes to the ports of Chile in the Pacific. This will shorten the access to the Asian market by at least 20 days, and it will be a great change in logistics to have access to the markets in Asia. The other part where we think Latin America and Paraguay will play a very important role is on energy transition. We are already leading this process, and of course there is still a lot of work to do, but Paraguay is by far the country that is most integrated to the rest of the countries in South America. 50 years ago, we designed, we built, and we are operating the two largest hydroelectric dams. Itaipu is today the largest in the world. We compete year and year with the three Georges in China. One year they produce more, the other year we produce more, but we have produced more clean renewable energy like any other country in the world, and probably at this pace nobody is going to be able to outpace Paraguay. 100% of our energy comes from hydro, and I will repeat this, 100% comes only from hydro. And we export 50% of all the electricity that we don't consume. We are integrated to the Argentinian electric grid. We are integrated to the Brazilian electric grid, where we sell all that electricity. Now, we are moving very, very fast in using this hydroelectric electricity as a magnet to bring hyperscalers and companies that want to leverage on that energy, which is not only the most sustainable, but is the most reliable and is the most competitive in terms of price. So both hydroelectric, which were built in the 70s and 80s, are fully amortized. So as you can imagine, the cost of producing energy from those hydro is very, very low, and you cannot compete anywhere in the world. On top of that, we are planning to do a large investment in solar to combine with that electricity abundance. And we're working also in a joint program with Brazil and Argentina to bring that massive amount of gas that Argentina has discovered in Neuquén, to take this to Brazil, to the largest market, São Paulo, exactly through the middle of Paraguay. And in the process, Paraguay again want to use the combined cycle to attract more industries to use Paraguay. We understand the complexity of all the countries in Latin America, and some countries can provide larger market but more complicated regulations. Other countries like Paraguay are trying to offer probably a smaller market. But if we are interconnected, if we are integrated, and we can encourage the countries that are surrounded us, that we are going to be much better off to integrate ourselves. We think that the future for Latin America and South America this time could be different. We are proving that Paraguay is a great platform. For many, many decades, Europe and the US were the largest foreign direct investors in Paraguay. Not anymore. For the last 10 years, it has been Brazil, the largest foreign direct investor in Paraguay. So what they discovered, what they found, that Paraguay is not a competition for Brazilian industries, but it's a complement for the Brazilian industries, which are competing with countries overseas, with regions overseas that sometimes are offering a competitiveness that they cannot compete, meaning more ease of doing business, lower taxes, and of course the same access to the market that they have. So this combination, I think, that will make a difference for Latin America. The path forward is still very long. And despite the progress that Latin America has done over the last couple of decades and the opportunity that we have, the sense that we all have is that this is not enough. And what I have been trying to do over the last 2.5 years as president of Paraguay, and in the past I was doing this as Minister of Finance, is to encourage president, because not every president who has the popular vote have the knowledge and experience to understand the full potential. So my message has been to the presidents in Latin America, to the multilateral institutions, we need to convey the message that we should not look on our natural resources, which are abundant. We have abundance of natural resources that grows above the land. Food. We are rich, and there's a huge amount of wealth on natural resources that is below the land, minerals, rare minerals, and all sorts of things. But what will define the future of Latin America is the vision and the ambition that the leaders will have in the coming years. The table is served for us. We have all the opportunities, and it depends only on us. The IFC is doing a job in providing financing to the private sector. But the problem of Latin America is not lack of financing, it's lack of vision. So my desire is to do of Latin America, to do on Paraguay, what the UAE has done over the last 4 decades in this country. I came to Dubai 15 years ago as a Minister of Finance to negotiate an investment agreement, elimination of double taxation. When I won the election in April 2023, the first country that I visited, and I had the chance to have a meeting with His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, is to make Paraguay the entry gate for the relation between the UAE and Latin America. And I think over the last 2.5 years, we have made a lot of progress, but the way ahead of us is still very, very long, and it requires that all work together. Governments, private sector, and of course, the multilateral institutions. Thank you very much.